Hey everyone, State Representative Emmanuel Chris Welch here. Good afternoon and welcome to my weekly Sunday Facebook Live conversation. I'm really excited about today's conversation. You're going to get to meet two young men that I consider mentees of mine and I really think the world of. They are not future leaders, they are our leaders of today and they are doing one heck of a job in their respective spaces. Many times they cross the same space. But I will tell you, they are dynamic leaders in our community. And I'm looking forward to our conversation here today. Please share this conversation in your feed so that your friends can meet Christian Perry and Berto Aguayo. And I'm sure they're going to be as impressed with them as I am. I want to do a brief introduction of them before we get to the conversation. Christian Perry, Christian D. Perry to many, is the new State Director of Community Development at the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority. In the legislature, we call it ICJIA. He is the former Director of External Affairs and Communications for Cook County Commissioner Miller out in the south suburbs, Donna Miller. Also, he is an active member of the U.S. Navy Reserve, and also a fine graduate of Trinity Christian College. Christian, how you doing today, man?
I am great. It's so funny as you get older, those bullet points start getting longer and longer. I'm doing great. Just grateful to be here.
That's called earning stripes, and that's more stripes. Please welcome my other guest here this afternoon, a fellow at the Chicago Community Trust, political director for Democratic candidate and future Congresswoman from the 3rd Congressional District, Marie Newman, former community organizer for the Resurrection Project, and current leader. You will see him often out in the streets of the Increase the Peace organization, fighting the violence that's going on right there out in the streets of Chicago. And he is a former intern in the office of State Representative Chris Welch. Berto Aguayo. Berto, what's happening, man? How you doing?
I'm good, brother. Glad to be virtually back with you and syncing up with Christian and you. I'm really happy to have this combo, man. It's much needed.
Absolutely. Berto and I met because he is a graduate of Dominican University right here in the 7th District. Many people don't know that we have two fine 4-year universities right here in the 7th District, right in River Forest, Dominican University and Concordia. And a lot of my interns come from Dominican, and Berto was one of my finest, and even has gone out and knocked on doors with me in 20-degree weather. So really happy to have this conversation with these guys. You guys have been pretty busy though. I mean, I'm shocked I was able to get you to slow down to have this conversation. Berto, how you doing, man? You've been staying quite busy.
Yeah, so I've been good, man. I'm fortunate enough to be able to do what I love, and to make a living out of doing what I love. And I know that not a lot of people have that blessing and that privilege. So it's, I think up to folks like us that can do this for a living and can do this, have the passion for this to bless other folks and see how we can bring other people up with us. But mental health is important. And I was telling you that right after this conversation, this is my last commitment of the week. Going 3 days. Yeah, 3 days to Iowa because, over the last couple of days, we've done some tremendous work. We've stopped a lot of shootings in our neighborhood, but, my mom's house was shot up on Friday, and then we lost one of our young leaders yesterday on Friday, but we let everybody know yesterday. So it's this work can be draining, and this work can be mentally exhaustive. So we got to make sure we take care of ourselves and not be afraid to say, hey, you know what, I need a little break.
Well, I mentioned your bio a little bit there. Why don't you tell the viewers specifically the work that you're doing out there and why it is so draining? And
Yeah,
Christian,
so
the same thing.
Yeah, so I'm the executive director of Increase the Peace. We're a youth-led violence prevention organization. Over the last 2 months, we've done a variety of things from giving emergency grants to street vendors. So we fundraised $41,000 to give $500 in emergency grants to nearly 60 street vendors that didn't get a stimulus check, that are just struggling to make ends meet. We've also organized about 11 Black and Brown Unity food pantries where we've given out food to about 10,000 people over the course of the last couple months, really aimed at increasing Black and Brown unity in our communities. And we've also done a lot of work around violence prevention. 4th of July weekend, we did three days of events up to 3 in the morning on Saturday, 4th of July, out in the hood, building relationships, making sure that we're promoting peace and giving young people opportunities. And the deadliest weekend of the year in 3 of the toughest neighborhoods in the south side of Chicago, and back of the yards, Brandon Park and Gage Park, there were 0 shootings during 4th of July weekend.
That's right.
So that was, you know, that things that's testament to what we do in the neighborhood. And now we're continuing to work. We have about 40 young leaders that we employ through the organization that we've been training and organizing to take the mantle and make sure they're creating other leaders. So that's a little bit about what we do and what we've been doing in the past couple months. We've also organized a lot of Black and Brown Unity events, car parades, marches, to make sure that people know that our liberation is intertwined and that, you know, Black and Brown folks, we got to be there for each other. You know, when situations like George Floyd happened, Brown folks like me got to stand up and support brothers like Christian and brothers like you, Chris, in the state legislature. And the same thing, you know, when it comes to situations with ICE in our communities, you know, we got to make sure that we're supporting one another.
That's right. Sure. Christian, you know, you just started a new job this week, but you're no stranger to being out there in the community and doing what you do. Why don't you share with us what you're doing in your new role of Director of Community Development and why you're no stranger to being out there in the community?
Yeah, so I mean, I approached this work, and Berto, like I just got to say, my brother has been kicking butt and taking names in the community, just really showing young people what's possible. I think that's what's awesome when you have people that are under 30 in this work getting busy. It's like, man, you know, my little brother that's 21, 22 can look at it and be like, man, I can do that. So that's just dope. So I got to celebrate Berto. But for me, my new role at ICEJA, this role's never existed, right? And I got to give honor and glory to God, because I think what he's allowed, when Berto talked about people like us being blessed to be able to work and do work that we love and be passionate about giving back to the community, ICEJA saw that there was a need to help bridge 2 gaps. One, from their agency to legislators like yourself in the state house. So I'll be doing a lot of policy work on that end, having communications with you guys to kind of help strengthen the relationships that already exist and create ones that don't between ICEJA and legislators, but then also, more importantly, from ICEJA to the community. When you say ICEJA, people don't know what it is, and Berto's doing violence prevention work right now. I need Berto to know about every single grant that is available to him from this great agency and the great people that work there, from our researchers and our grant writers. I need Berto to know, right? I need other organizations like Increase the Peace to know that this is going on. But then also, I need them to help us think about how we're doing violence prevention, youth intervention, diversion. Are we doing it the right way? Right? The Lieutenant Governor says often that the answers are in the room. And part of my job as Community Development Director is bringing the community in and kind of demystifying the halls of government for people that are actually on the ground doing the work. So I am extremely excited to start week 2 tomorrow in this role and figuring out how I do this thing statewide.
Indeed. I'm proud of both of you, really extremely proud of both of you, and really was looking forward to this conversation today. And Berto kind of touched on something, with regard to what he's been doing out in the streets since the murder of George Floyd. Initially, there was some tension between the Black and Brown communities, and Berto, your organization stepped up and helped quiet that down. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so kind of chronologically going, because there's been so many things that have happened in the last couple weeks, months. But just to lay it out in context, I believe it was June 4th on a Saturday when there was a George Floyd protest downtown, and I wanted to make sure that, you know, as a Brown leader, I was doing my part to show solidarity with the Black community and demanding justice for George Floyd. So we organized a Brown People for Black Lives car caravan from 26th Street in Little Village going to downtown. And we had I'm talking about like the whole main avenue block. Like, it was so many cars, so many people came out. We went downtown, we're supporting. And then the next day, June 5th, Sunday, I believe it was June 5th, if I'm mistaken, my bad. But the next day, Sunday, the riots happened, and our neighborhoods, it was chaotic, man. It was like a scene out of the Joker movie. It was just bad. And back at the yards, we had like a gang war on top of potential race war, and all hell was breaking loose. And called some people up. I said, hey, y'all, we got to increase the peace and make sure that people that are immigrant-owned businesses, they don't have a lot, they don't get looted, but we also got to make sure we're increasing Black and brown solidarity and making sure that we're keeping the peace among people. And we did that. We had guns pulled up on us, like trying to defend small businesses, but we kept it peaceful, and that's why you didn't hear about 47th Street or back of the yards in the news as much, because we're able to maintain some level of peace in the community. And then the next Friday, so we organized then 200 people came out for a Black and brown unity cleanup the day after the riots, and then we organized a Black and brown unity car parade that same Friday after the rioting happened. And it was about 500 cars that went all through the South Side with Pan-African flags, Mexican flags, showing, yo, all this talk about a race war, this is what Black and brown unity looks like, and this is what we got to be promoting and supporting. And then since then, we've been really focusing on educating, checking and educating, our people, brown folks in my community, about the anti-Blackness that exists in our community, and also how we can be better advocates and allies. And I wouldn't even say allies, but accomplices, to the Black community. And how do we tear down these systems that sometimes are pitting us against each other? And I think, Chris, you've been a perfect example of how you build Black and brown coalitions at the state level, and like the Trust Act and other acts like it. And I think that's what we got to do and model that on the ground as well.
Hey, Christian, you've been out there doing some marches. I've seen you out there in the south suburbs and downtown doing Black Lives Matter marches. This week, though, Donald Trump sent federal agents into the city of Chicago. I want to get your thoughts on the President of the United States sending federal troops, agents into the city, and what you think he's up to.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So Black Millennial Renaissance has been able, very young organization, but we turned out 500 people in Palos Heights. We supported 100 people out in Palos Hills for a march where we were met by some people who consider themselves to be Trump supporters, consider themselves to be in line with how the president is thinking and reacting to this moment. And what I see when I'm out in the street is I see two things. I see people like myself and like Berto and young other Black and brown leaders, Black women, marching for something much bigger than politics, right? But then I see people that want to kind of distill this down into a political issue. And I think when we talk about President Trump, what he's done in Portland, what he threatened to do here and is trying to do here in Chicago with federal agents who are unmarked, federal agents who don't have name tags. What I think, just in short, is I think it's performative. I think it's disgusting. He has no relationship with the people here. Trump supporters sometimes do not decide to engage with the people here doing work on the ground. And at the end of the day, when you're talking about federal agents and trying to use them as a disguise to say, hey, we're doing this to make communities safer. No, you want to make communities safer, give them resources. Fund them adequately, make sure there's good education, make sure there's access to healthcare, food, recreation. Reason why you don't see, violence in Orland Park or Schaumburg is because those communities are well funded and well resourced. There's homeowners in that community. So I think it's, in short, it's disgusting, it's performative, and it's not helpful at all.
I mean, Berto, you're out there in the streets, you're on the front lines, basically trying to stop this violence that's going on in the city. What are your thoughts about Donald Trump sending in, as he calls it, help?
Yeah, I blocked off for a little bit because my computer overheated. It's so hot out here today. but I didn't catch most of what Chris said, but I think we're probably on the same page on this. If we're going to be sending in, the quote unquote feds to Chicago, we need federal opportunities, not federal criminalization. We got to make sure that we get more funding from the federal government for our young people to get jobs, more funding for our folks to have stable housing so they're not out on the street looking for where to go, mental health services, and so on and so forth. If we really want to prevent violence, if we really want to tackle that issue, we got to tackle it at its root. And criminalizing and the over-militarization of our communities is just putting, at the very least, Band-Aids on the problem, and at worst, putting fuel to the fire. And I am disappointed in city officials who let this happen, because we've seen in communities like ours that I've literally had to put myself on the line to protect families from being deported. I've been there and I've seen what it looks like, and I'm just really disappointed that city officials didn't do more to prevent federal agents from coming into our neighborhoods, because they've seen what that has done before.
Well, let me ask both of you guys this question. Christian, definitely as a young Black man, father figure, if we won't stop killing each other, how can we demand the police to stop killing us?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And the way I respond to that is, human beings are capable of holding two things, three things, four things at once. And this is not, you're asking a question that is a much broader question that's being asked in a lot of contexts. So my response is not necessarily to you. My response is to the question that's being asked. And the reality is, I think it's a false dichotomy, right? I think it's rhetoric that, frankly, is steeped in whiteness, because 8 out of 10 white people are murdered by other white people. But yet white on white crime is not a thing that we say. And we got to ask ourselves why, right? So when you come into my community to police me, right? Because when you're in Black communities, you're not there to serve and protect. You're there to police and to watch and to warn. When you're there to do that, at the end of the day, the actions of a few people, right? Young, oftentimes youth who are hurting, who are in pain, and that bleeds out into violence. Those actions do not give you the authority or do not warrant you treating me less than in your engagement with me. And whether that's you killing me in the street like a dog, like George Floyd, or whether that's you just pressing me up against the car to get some information and not treating me with my humanity. Those things are not dependent on one another.
Absolutely. Hey, Berto, you've told your story very publicly. You've shared that you've are a former gang member, and you're out here in these streets and you see the gang violence that's right now in Chicago. I ask you the same question. How can we demand an end to police brutality if we're out killing ourselves?
Yeah, and I just piggyback off of what Christian just said, because that was said so powerfully. And I think that, those two things are not mutually exclusive. Oftentimes, if not all times, the same folks who are on the street demanding justice for George Floyd or victims of police brutality are the exact same people every single summer demanding justice for our own communities and demanding more resources. And we're the ones that sound like a broken record, because we've been talking about the solutions for decades, right? And myself, when I was as a gang member, what saved me wasn't that a cop stopped me or put me in jail. It was that a police officer actually cut me a break and told my mom, hey, you got to get your son to get a job so he could keep busy. And a job was what saved me. It wasn't, a police officer throwing me in jail. It wasn't, as the city officials have been saying, taking young people out of the street corners. Because once you take them off of the street corner, where are they going to go if they don't have another opportunity, right? There was a program back in the day, an initiative by Ron Emanuel called "Put the Guns Down." Well, okay, put the guns down, and what are you going to pick up? You got to pick up a book, you got to pick up a job, a paycheck. You can't just ask people to stop doing what they're doing without a real alternative solution to what they're currently doing. And if we don't expose our young people to different opportunities to unpack all that trauma, mental health resources that we have in our community, then we're never going to tackle the root issue of the problem. And I say it as somebody who had a job and that saved my life and that took me out of a gang. I say it as somebody believed in me and gave me an opportunity. And that's what ended up changing my trajectory and why I'm even on this panel and got to meet you, Chris, at that office, learning from you. If somebody hadn't believed in me or given me that opportunity to think about a different world and a different future for myself, then I would probably be 6 feet under or in a jail cell somewhere. And I think we got to really think about tackling those roots if we want to fix the tree.
Christian, Berto's talking about fixing roots, but the system is stacked against us. So how do we address the violence in our city, in our state? What are the systems that need to be broken down and repaired?
Yeah, no, Berto is channeling some of the same energy. I mean, me and Berto had the great gift of being on a panel together earlier. And the reality is we're all talking about reimagining society, and we just got to be comfortable saying that. The foundation that this country was built on is a foundation that wasn't built on good ground. right? There's trauma, there's tragedy. And until we can begin to retill that soil, right, and make it fertile, you're talking about decision makers having to change the way that they think. People like yourself, Rep, where you got folks on the ground like me and Berto who are telling you, we got to start having more conversations about preventative measures, right? Mental health is preventative. Access to education is preventative. Recreation and summer programs are preventative, right? Policing, that's reactionary. Always will be. The institution was called, you call 911 when something bad has already happened. So when you're talking about building an infrastructure from anew, it has to be rooted in equity. It has to be rooted in access to jobs, housing, lending practices, all of that. That takes leaders like yourself having the political will to say, we got to flip this thing on its head. Like, yes, let's do the 8 can't wait. Let's talk about policing, but that's the floor, right? The ceiling is truly reimagining how we do government, how we do safe communities, and what that looks like.
Those are things that will help get to the root of violence in our communities. But how do we end police brutality? Talking to a legislator like myself, what are policies that two men like you who are out in the streets, on the front lines, talking to young folks every day, say, Rep, we need these systemic changes to end police brutality? Berto and then Christian.
One of the things that I would say, I'll first start out with a story that illustrates the point. When we did the 4th of July weekend activities to prevent violence in our community, the first day on Friday, July 3rd, we had a peace march. We brought out, young people leading a peace march to promote peace in our communities. We had live music. It was lit. It was beautiful. It was dope. Everybody was with it. And a white female sergeant comes over and says, she had no face mask on, and she says, hey, we're not gonna let you march on the street. You can't do that. We're gonna you all have to march on the sidewalk. And I say, hold on a second. I've never met you before. I can tell you that you're new, but we've been doing this for a long time. We've been doing this for years. And she's like, oh, okay, yeah, but there's going to be moving cars. You're not afraid of that? I'm like, look, I'm more afraid of COVID because it's one of the hardest communities hit by COVID. And I'm not going to put people on a sidewalk to be close to each other. I can tell that you don't believe in COVID because you don't have a face mask. You don't take it that seriously. But in communities like ours, COVID has taken a lot of people. And ultimately, she knew that she couldn't stop us, and we went on the street anyway, on the main street anyway. The next day, so this Friday, they were trying to shut us down. Saturday, they come over. The same police officers, they come over because we were giving out food to residents in the neighborhood to have their own cookout. We were giving them hot dogs, buns, and the works to have their very own cookout at home and be peaceful in their own crib. We're giving that out to cars as they were passing by. 5-0 shows up. The same police officers show up with their camera crews taking pictures when they contributed nothing to that event. Not a thing, right? And they were trying to shut us down the day before. And they were trying to give out food, and I had to tell them, hey, yo, Commander, that's not cool. You didn't bring anything to the table. You haven't built any relationships with anybody here, and you bring cameras to show how this is going to, this is a community policing that you are supposedly doing. Like, nah, that ain't going to work for us, fam. And we told them that, and they left. But I think that illustrates how performative some of this community policing stuff that we see in the neighborhood is, because they're not really building relationships. So what we got to do, I think, policy level wise, is fund the hood, fund the preventative measures that really tackle the root cause of the problem. Hire young people to do the street outreach for other young people, right? Hire young people to be community health advocates, right? So they can tell people, hey, there's a COVID site right here. Right? Hey, there's something that's going on here. You should get some food. Here's a food pantry, right? And fund the hood instead of funding the reactionary measures that Chris was talking about, and fund the proactive measures of community organizations like Increase the Peace, like the Hit the Hood Collective that we've organized to make sure that these things happen. And I just worry that you can't reform culture, right? And there's a culture that's deeply rooted in police departments like in the city of Chicago, where the story that I just shared is way too common, where authentic relationships are not being built, and they're only, performed in front of a camera, but not performed or worked on behind the scenes.
We only have about 5 minutes left, gentlemen, and I want to be respectful of your time. Christian, you just started a new job that pretty much that's your role is to get this money into these organizations in the community like Increase the Peace. What are other solutions to help end police brutality?
Yeah, I mean, other solutions, like I said, it's going to sound like a broken record because folks like ourselves have been kind of saying these things for me, I tell people I became politically aware when Trayvon Martin happened. And that's when my mind started to light up about, how do we do this different? And the reality is one way is, the way that I'm gifted to be able to do it through ICEJA and say, hey, we got these great organizations, coming to the state legislature and saying, hey, make sure that ICEJA is fully funded. Make sure that we're continue to think about creative ways to transition money to the streets so that it can have an impact. Because at the end of the day, budgets are a reflection of our values. So we talk about how do we end police violence? We end police violence and brutality by being brave enough to think about a society that needs less police, being brave enough to think about a society that needs less incarceration facilities, right? That takes a reimagining, that takes an unlearning and a deprogramming of what we've been taught already, right? Because we can do it. We're seeing it done in Cook County, right? One of the things that President Preckwinkle was very proud of is the fact that she has decreased the population tremendously of JTDC, Juvenile Detention Center, as well as the Department of Corrections. Yet and still, though, we saw the Department of Corrections in Cook County get an increase in their budget. We're not reflecting our values, right? That money needs to go elsewhere. Mental health, infrastructure for healthcare, community health advocates, teaching people what the social determinants of health are. Though all those things, when we're not doing them, those participate violence and those participate not having good relationships with police. So it's a lot of different avenues and different ways we can get there, but all of these will help cut down on police having to do things that they shouldn't be doing in the first place.
Let me ask you guys this question. We saw in the city of Chicago 2 Christopher Columbus statues come down recently. The portrait of Stephen Douglas was covered in the House of Representatives and hopefully soon to be replaced by a portrait of President Obama. Stephen Douglas Park is going to be renamed Frederick Douglass Park in the city of Chicago. Christian, then Berto, what do you guys think of removing of these figures in history that many believe to be racist? And where do we go after removing statues?
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing. To be completely honest with you, I think as a political scientist, as a historian, I know that those images and those things, when they're elevated to be celebrated and honored, can cause pain. But I will say something that I don't hear being said enough, and that is absolutely take down the statue. Absolutely get that Douglas out of the State House. However, don't destroy them and don't get rid of them, because that will continue the bad behavior that got us here, where we're not dealing with the nastiness of our past and of our history. It shouldn't be elevated. It shouldn't be celebrated, but it should be dealt with. But it should be dealt with in the recesses, right? Those things belong at the bottom of the museum. So I think it's a great thing.
Berto?
Yeah, same here. Great first step. I was there 3 in the morning when it was being taken down, celebrating with everybody else. And I think it's a great step in the right direction. But I think we got to really be long-term thinkers. And actually, that's why I'm going away, so I can reflect and think about what's next, because sometimes when we're in it, we can't really do that. But what I'm thinking right now that we can do is, one, let's hire a whole bunch of young people to get other people counted for the census, because that's going to bring long-term funding for our communities for the next 10 years. And it's going to increase the representation that we have in our community. So that goes to my second point. I think long-term, we got to make sure that we're identifying people like you, Chris, who are bold, and I know it because I've been in conversations with you where you don't care what anybody else thinks, but if you think that that's the right thing to do, that's how you're going to vote. And too often we don't have those kind of individuals in our government system. So we got to identify and elect those people to make sure that they're doing and voting on the systemic policies that will, tackle the root cause of the issue. And then thirdly, we got to create the space for young people to take the lead, because as you said, we're not the young, the leaders of tomorrow. We're the leaders right now. We've got to make sure that we're creating other leaders, because that's a real leader is defined by that, right? Creating other leaders, just like, you taught me a lot. Now I'm taking what you taught me and giving it to other young people in the hood. And I think we got to make sure that as we're at the table, we're bringing more people to that table.
Well, gentlemen, I see I'm almost out of time here. I only have like 15 seconds. So I'm going to ask both of you quickly. What's next for you And what are you looking to do most? What are you looking forward to do most this summer, Christian?
Well, thank you, Rep. Thank you for this time. Thank you, Berto. Like, I'm so grateful for you brothers in the movement and all that you're doing. But for me, what's next is still getting acclimated to the new job. It's a lot to learn about the state of Illinois and how we tackle criminal justice and violence prevention. Getting the organization on firm footing. Black Millennial Renaissance was able to grant a young person $500 to help get them back into school. So trying to formulate our programs and what that looks like. But that's on the activist side. The thing I'm most excited to do 2 weeks from today is marry my best friend. I get to do that on August 9th. So yeah, a lot of people know Shakina. I'm gonna give her a shameless plug. Shakina Sims, Madam Chair of the Cook County Young Democratic Party, Board President of Chicago Votes. We get to say I do in 2 weeks. So I'm thoroughly looking forward to that.
Hey, you're a lucky man, Christian. Berto, how do you follow that?
I can't. I'm just gonna stop right there, say congrats, and see y'all. You know, I'll see the video of the wedding. No, bro, but real talk, congrats. I am not getting married this fall. Not yet. I'm gonna give myself a little more time, but you're putting some peer pressure on me, bro. But what I will say is, you know, I'm leaving to Iowa to chill out with the fam and to just disconnect and unplug, think about the chess moves for the future. And really, I think what I'm going to do in the next couple of years is one, you know, right now we have 40 young people that we're working with, but we have three staffers now at the organization. And what I want to do is be able to let them lead the organization, and for me to be out of the picture, you know, for me to create a sustainable thing that outlast me, and for train them well enough to continue the fight, and then for me to go to law school. That's been my long-term goal, and hopefully fall of 2021 you see me in a law school campus somewhere, following your footsteps, Chris.
Hey, anything I can do, Berto, you know I'm here to help you do that, and I'm looking forward to you being a lawyer before the Illinois bar someday soon. I appreciate both of you guys. I admire you both. Keep up the great work. Thank you for giving me your valuable time here today, and I'm continuing to look forward to more greatness from you both. But until then, I want you guys to do 3 things for me. Watch your distance, wear your mask, and wash your hands.
Boom.
Until then, take care, guys.
Will do. Peace out, y'all.
All right. Take it easy.